In the far northwestern corner of Canada lies a vast and untamed expanse known as the Yukon. Here the land stretches seemingly without end, a tapestry of wild rivers, dense forests and towering mountains untouched by the hand of civilization. This is a land of superlatives, a territory spanning over 482,000 square kilometres. Yet its vastness is defined not by people but by the sheer scale of its natural features, endless forests, sprawling tundra and rivers that wind for hundreds of kilometres. The very name Yukon, derived from the Gwich'in word for white water, evokes the powerful, silt-laden Yukon River that carves its way through this rugged landscape, its currents shaping valleys and nourishing the ecosystems that thrive along its banks. The rivers here are lifelines, their courses etched deep into the earth over millennia, creating a network of waterways that sustain a rich diversity of plant and animal life. In the Yukon, the scale of nature is overwhelming. Towering mountains and endless forests dwarf everything in their path, creating a sense of isolation and grandeur that is rare in the modern world. The foundations of this territory are ancient, built upon volcanic and intrusive rock that first formed between 1.3 and 1.7 billion years ago. These rocks, exposed in outcrops and cliffs, tell the story of a world shaped by fire and pressure deep within the earth. Over immense geological timescales, the relentless forces of tectonic collisions folded and uplifted the Earth's crust, giving rise to the majestic mountain ranges that define the Yukon skyline. These mountains are not only beautiful, they are the product of unimaginable forces, their peaks and valleys shaped by the slow dance of continents. The St. Elias, Ogilvie and Mackenzie Mountains stand as silent witnesses to this deep history. Their snow-capped summits and rugged slopes are testament to the power of geological time. Among them, the St. Elias Range holds Canada's highest peak, the formidable Mount Logan, which soars to an astonishing 5,959 metres. Its massive bulk dominates the horizon, a frozen giant in a land of giants. The icy summit of Mount Logan is a world away from the forested valleys below, a realm of permanent ice and snow where only the hardiest forms of life can survive. The landscape we see today was sculpted by a more recent and much colder force, the Pleistocene Ice Age. During this time, massive glaciers advanced and retreated, grinding down mountains and carving out the dramatic valleys that define the region. These glaciers carved deep U-shaped valleys, sharpened mountain peaks into jagged arêtes, and left behind a legacy of glacial deposits, moraines, eskers and outwash plains that still shape the land today. Some of these immense rivers of ice, like the Kuskokwulch and Logan glaciers, persist to this day within Kluane National Park and Reserve, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. These glaciers are living relics of the last ice age, slowly sculpting the land as they have for thousands of years. The meltwaters from these glaciers feed the rivers and lakes of the Yukon, their cold, mineral-rich flows sustaining life and continuing the process of erosion and renewal. This dramatic geology has created a mosaic of different habitats, from the sprawling boreal forests of the lowlands dominated by spruce, pine and birch, to the stark, windswept beauty of the alpine tundra, where only the toughest shrubs and lichens survive. The Yukon is a land of profound contrasts, where dense green forests give way to barren rocky slopes and serene lakes reflect the towering peaks above. In summer, wildflowers briefly transform the tundra, while in winter snow and ice reclaim the land. It is a wilderness that feels both timeless and ever-changing, a place where the raw power of geological forces is on full display. Weather and seasons shift rapidly, reshaping the landscape in subtle and dramatic ways. This rich and varied terrain provides the stage for one of the planet's most incredible natural spectacles. a story of survival, adaptation and epic journeys across an ancient and formidable land, where the geography and geology remain the true enduring protagonists. Life in the Yukon is governed by a cold, subarctic climate, a regime of dramatic extremes that shapes every aspect of the ecosystem. Here, survival is a daily challenge, and every living thing must be finely tuned to the relentless rhythm of the seasons. The winters are long, dark, and profoundly cold. For months the sun hangs low on the horizon, casting long shadows across a landscape blanketed in deep snow. The silence is broken only by the wind, and the world seems frozen in time. Temperatures frequently plummet to below -30 degrees Celsius and can sometimes reach an astonishing -50 degrees. Frost clings to every branch, and the air itself seems to crackle with cold. For the animals of the Yukon, this intense cold is a formidable challenge. Mammals like lynx and snowshoe hares grow thick winter coats, while caribou and moose rely on layers of insulating fur and fat. Many creatures, such as the Arctic ground squirrel, escape the cold by hibernating deep beneath the snow, their bodies slowing to a near standstill to conserve precious energy. Others, like the ptarmigan, burrow into snowdrifts for warmth, their plumage turning white to blend with the frozen world. In stark contrast, the summers are short, but they are a period of explosive life and activity. The land transforms almost overnight, as if awakened from a deep slumber. The sun barely sets, bathing the land in near-constant daylight for weeks on end. This phenomenon, known as the midnight sun, fuels a frantic burst of growth. Plants race to complete their life cycles, and animals take advantage of the abundance. Temperatures climb to a more comfortable 10 to 20 degrees Celsius, melting the snow and ice and awakening the dormant landscape. Rivers, once locked in ice, surge with meltwater, carving new channels through the valleys. Wildflowers erupt in a riot of colour, carpeting the valleys and attracting swarms of insects. The air hums with the activity of bees, butterflies and dragonflies, all racing against time to feed and reproduce. For the wildlife of the Yukon, this fleeting season is a critical window of opportunity. Caribou herds migrate across vast distances to reach rich feeding grounds, their calves born into a world of abundance. Birds, having travelled thousands of kilometres from southern wintering grounds, nest and raise their chicks in the safety of endless daylight. Every creature is driven by the urgency to feed, breed and prepare for the return of winter. This cycle of extreme cold and brief warmth defines the very character of the Yukon's ecosystems. The land is shaped by the constant push and pull between survival and abundance. The land is dominated by vast boreal forests, also known as taiga, where hardy coniferous trees like spruce and pine thrive. These trees are adapted to withstand the weight of heavy snow and the bitter cold, their needles retaining moisture and resisting freezing winds. Above the tree line, the forest gives way to alpine tundra, a windswept environment where only the toughest low-growing plants can survive. Here, mosses, lichens and tiny wildflowers cling to life, enduring fierce winds and a growing season that lasts just a few weeks. This sharp division between habitats is a direct result of the climate. The short growing season and harsh winters prevent trees from establishing themselves at higher elevations, creating distinct zones for different species of plants and animals, each perfectly adapted to its specific environment. Wolves and foxes patrol the edges, hunting for prey that must constantly remain alert to survive. The transition between these seasons is rapid and dramatic. In a matter of days, snow can vanish and the land can burst into life, or the first frost can signal the swift return of winter's grip. Spring arrives with a sudden rush, as melting snow unleashes torrents of water and the first green shoots emerge. Migratory birds return, filling the air with their calls as they search for nesting sites and food. Autumn is equally brief, a fleeting blaze of gold and red as the leaves of deciduous trees turn before falling, heralding the imminent arrival of the first snows. Animals frantically feed, building fat reserves or caching food to survive the coming months. This powerful rhythmic pulse of the seasons is the heartbeat of the Yukon. It dictates the timing of migrations, the cycles of birth and death, and the very strategies that every creature must employ to survive in this beautiful yet unforgiving northern world. Every adaptation, every behavior is a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of life in the face of nature's most extreme challenges. Of all the Yukon's wildlife, none embodies the spirit of this untamed land more than the porcupine caribou. These animals are the living pulse of the wilderness, their lives woven into the very fabric of the northern landscape. Each year, the porcupine caribou herd embarks on a journey of astonishing scale and endurance. Named after the Porcupine River that winds through their range, this herd undertakes one of the longest terrestrial migrations on the planet, traversing up to 2,400 kilometers in a vast circular route that spans the wild heart of the Yukon and Alaska. The migration is a spectacle of movement and survival, a living river of hooves and antlers flowing across the tundra, through dense boreal forests, and over rugged mountain passes. The herd's journey is not a simple path, but a complex, time-honed circuit that responds to the subtle cues of the seasons, the availability of food, and the ever-present threat of predators. As autumn's chill descends, the caribou begin their southward trek from the wind-swept coastal plains where they have spent the summer. They move in great numbers, threading their way through the formidable Ogilvie and Richardson Mountains. The terrain is harsh and unforgiving. Steep slopes, icy rivers, and deep snow challenge every step. Yet the caribou are perfectly adapted for this odyssey. Their long, slender legs are built for distance and for breaking through snowdrifts, while their broad concave hooves act as natural snowshoes, spreading their weight and providing traction on slippery ground. The caribou's dense, double-layered coat insulates them from the biting cold, trapping air close to the body and shedding water and snow. Even their noses are specialized, warming the frigid air before it reaches their lungs. Both males and females grow antlers, a rare trait among deer. The male's antlers are large and elaborate, used in dramatic sparring matches during the autumn rut, while the females retain their smaller antlers through the winter, using them to defend feeding spots in the snowbound landscape. Winter is a season of endurance. The herd seeks shelter in the mountain ranges where fierce winds scour the ridges, exposing patches of lichen, their primary food source. Here, the caribou huddle together for warmth, bracing against storms and temperatures that can plunge to -40 degrees Celsius or lower. Every day is a test of resilience, as the herd conserves energy and waits for the return of the sun. As the days slowly lengthen and the grip of winter loosens, a powerful instinct stirs within the herd. The pregnant females, heavy with new life, sense the subtle shift in the air and begin to lead the migration northward. The snow softens, rivers begin to flow, and the landscape awakens with the promise of spring. The journey north is urgent and relentless. The herd must reach the Beaufort Coastal Plain, a narrow band of tundra along the Arctic Ocean, before the calves are born. This area on the northern edge of the Yukon and Alaska is the ancient calving ground of the porcupine caribou. The timing is critical. The females arrive just as the first flush of spring vegetation emerges, providing the rich nutrients needed to produce milk for their newborns. In early June, the calving begins. Thousands of females give birth within a few short weeks, synchronizing the arrival of their calves with the peak of plant growth. The open, windswept plain offers few places for predators to hide, giving the vulnerable calves a greater chance of survival in their first fragile days. The newborns must stand and run within hours of birth, ready to keep pace with the moving herd. Their survival depends on the protection of numbers and the vigilance of their mothers. The herd remains on the coastal plain for several weeks, feeding and gaining strength before the long journey south begins anew. Throughout this epic migration, the caribou are a keystone of the northern ecosystem. Their passage sustains wolves, bears and scavenger birds, while their hooves churn the soil, helping to shape the very landscape they traverse. The migration is not just a movement of animals, it is the heartbeat of the Yukon Wilderness, a timeless rhythm that has echoed across these lands for millennia. As the seasons turn, the cycle continues. The Porcupine Caribou herd, driven by ancient instincts and shaped by the wild, endures the hardships of the north in a journey that is as old as the land itself. Their migration is a testament to the power of adaptation, the strength of community, and the enduring mystery of the wild. This ancient and sacred journey, from mountain to coast and back again, is the enduring rhythm of the Yukon Wilderness, untouched by human hands, shaped only by the forces of nature and the will of the caribou themselves. The Yukon, a vast and untamed expanse, stands as a sentinel at the edge of the world, bearing silent witness to the relentless advance of climate change. Here in the far north, the effects of a warming planet are not distant warnings, but daily realities etched into the land itself. The impacts of global climate change are being felt here more acutely than in almost any other region on Earth. The ground, once locked in ice for centuries, now softens and shifts, revealing scars of thaw and erosion. Temperatures are rising at an alarming rate, disrupting the ancient rhythms that have governed this wilderness for millennia. Winters grow shorter, and the once predictable freeze and thaw cycles are thrown into chaos. Recent reports have shown that Arctic summers are becoming significantly warmer, and autumn temperatures have soared, creating a cascade of effects that ripple through every level of the ecosystem. The heat lingers, extending the growing season but also intensifying drought and stress on the land. This accelerated warming is not a distant threat, it is a present reality that is reshaping the very foundations of the Yukon. Riverbanks crumble and the ground fractures as the permafrost that once held everything together begins to fail. One of the most dramatic consequences is the thawing of permafrost, the layer of permanently frozen ground that underpins much of the northern landscape. As it melts, ancient ice gives way to mud and water, destabilizing the terrain. As this ancient ice melts, the ground becomes unstable, leading to landslides and slumping. Hillsides collapse, and valleys are reshaped, altering the very geography of the region. This process, known as retrogressive thaw, is causing widespread erosion, altering the course of rivers and damaging the fragile tundra. Waterways become clogged with sediment, and habitats are lost as the land literally falls away. The thaw also releases vast quantities of trapped greenhouse gases like methane into the atmosphere, creating a dangerous feedback loop that further accelerates warming. Invisible plumes of gas rise from the ground, intensifying the very process that set them free. The very ground on which this ecosystem is built is becoming less solid, less predictable. What was once firm and unyielding now trembles and shifts, threatening the stability of everything that depends on it. This climatic disruption is having a profound impact on the porcupine caribou. Their ancient migration routes passed down through generations are now fraught with new hazards, unstable ground, flooded valleys and unpredictable weather. The increasingly unpredictable weather is throwing their life cycle out of sync. Sudden storms, unseasonal warmth and unexpected freezes challenge their ability to find food and shelter. Unseasonable warmth can trigger an earlier spring, Yet a sudden cold snap can refreeze the ground just as the pregnant females arrive at the calving grounds. The delicate timing required for successful births is thrown into jeopardy. This means they may give birth before the nutrient-rich plants have had a chance to grow, leading to undernourished calves that are weaker and more susceptible to predation. The next generation faces a struggle for survival from their very first breath. A herd already weakened by these environmental stresses becomes an easier target for predators, threatening the long-term health and stability of this iconic population. Wolves and bears, ever watchful, take advantage of the caribou's vulnerability. The changing climate is also triggering a shift in the vegetation. New plant species, once unable to survive the harsh conditions, now take root and spread across the tundra. As temperatures rise, shrubs and boreal forests are expanding their range, creeping northwards into areas that were once open tundra. The landscape transforms, with dense thickets replacing the open spaces caribou rely on for migration and foraging. This shrubification of the Arctic alters the habitat for species like caribou and changes the fire regime, increasing the risk of larger and more frequent wildfires. Smoke drifts across the horizon, and blackened scars mark the aftermath of blazes that once would have been rare. It also allows species from the south to push northward, creating new competitive pressures. Animals unfamiliar to the region leave their tracks in the softening ground, competing for food and territory. The delicate balance of the Yukon's ecosystems, honed over thousands of years, is being fundamentally altered, presenting an uncertain future for the wildlife that depends on this unique and fragile wilderness. Every plant, every animal, every river and hill is touched by the warming world, each change echoing through the web of life, reshaping the Yukon in ways both subtle and profound. The vast, untamed wilderness of the Yukon stretches for thousands of kilometers, a realm where only the most resilient and cunning creatures survive. Here, the balance of life is maintained by a formidable assembly of predators, each uniquely adapted to the harsh northern environment. These apex hunters are not just survivors, they are architects of the ecosystem, shaping the fate of countless other species through their actions. At the very top of this intricate food web stands the grey wolf, a symbol of wildness and intelligence. With a population estimated between 4,500 and 5,000, these highly social animals live and hunt in complex family groups. Their communication is rich, involving howls, body language and scent marking, all essential for coordinating their movements across vast territories. Wolves are relentless hunters, working together to pursue caribou and moose herds across the snow-laden landscape. They often target the vulnerable, the young, the old or the weak, ensuring the health of the prey population by removing those least likely to survive. The interior Alaskan wolf, the subspecies found here, is among the largest in the world. These wolves are renowned for their stamina and teamwork, employing sophisticated ambush tactics and relentless pursuit to bring down prey many times their own size. Their success is a testament to their intelligence and the strength of their social bonds. Roaming the same wild expanses is another formidable predator, the grizzly bear. These solitary giants command respect wherever they roam. As the snow melts and spring breathes new life into the land, grizzly bears emerge from their dens, hungry and powerful. Their presence is felt across the tundra and forests as they search for food to replenish their strength after months of hibernation. A mature male grizzly can weigh over 250 kilograms, with the strength to topple trees and dig through frozen earth. Their keen sense of smell allows them to detect food from kilometers away, making them highly effective foragers and hunters. Grizzlies are true omnivores, consuming everything from roots and berries to fish and carrion. Their diet shifts with the seasons, and their adaptability is key to their survival in such a challenging environment. When food is scarce, a grizzly will not hesitate to challenge a wolf pack for a hard-won kill. With sheer size and power, a single bear can drive off multiple wolves, claiming the prize for itself. During the brief but intense caribou calving season, mother grizzlies become specialist hunters. They patrol the tundra seeking out newborn calves, and their predation can have a significant impact on the survival rates of the youngest caribou. Above the forests and tundra, the golden eagle reigns supreme. With piercing eyes and powerful wings, these raptors are masters of the northern skies. A golden eagle's wingspan can exceed 2 meters, allowing it to soar effortlessly for hours, scanning the ground for movement. Their talons are strong enough to dispatch prey as large as a fox or young caribou. Opportunistic and bold, golden eagles often shadow wolf packs, waiting for the right moment to swoop down and snatch a share of the spoils. Their agility and daring make them both skilled hunters and audacious scavengers. These raptors employ a variety of hunting strategies, from soaring high to spot distant prey, to flying low along ridges and valleys, surprising marmots and other small mammals with sudden devastating attacks. In a remarkable display of predatory ingenuity, golden eagles have been observed startling mountain goats near cliff edges, hoping to cause a fatal fall and claim the prize below. The Yukon's forests and thickets conceal 2 more elusive hunters, the Canada lynx and the wolverine. Though less often seen, their impact on the ecosystem is profound. The Canada lynx is a specialist, perfectly adapted to stalking its primary prey, the snowshoe hare. Its large fur-covered paws act as natural snowshoes, allowing it to move silently across deep drifts in pursuit of its quarry. The fate of the lynx is intimately tied to the 10-year boom-and-bust cycle of the snowshoe hare. When hares are plentiful, lynx populations flourish. When numbers crash, the lynx must range far and wide, sometimes facing starvation. The wolverine, a solitary and powerful member of the weasel family, is legendary for its strength and tenacity. It roams vast territories, often covering dozens of kilometers in a single day. Primarily a scavenger, the wolverine possesses a keen sense of smell, able to locate carcasses buried deep beneath the snow. Its jaws and muscles are so powerful that it can drag a frozen caribou carcass for long distances, caching it for leaner times. Together, these predators form a dynamic and ever-shifting balance, shaping the wild heart of the Yukon. Their presence ensures the health of the land, and their stories are written in every track, every hunt, and every silent moment beneath the northern sky. In this land, the drama of survival plays out daily, with no human hand to intervene, only the raw, untamed forces of nature itself. The vast, windswept tundra of the Yukon is more than just a landscape. It's a living arena where the forces of nature shape the destinies of its wild inhabitants. Here every day is a contest for survival, and the rules are being rewritten by a rapidly changing climate. At the heart of this unfolding drama is a tale of 2 foxes, the Arctic fox and the red fox, whose lives are becoming ever more entangled as warming temperatures redraw the boundaries of their world. For countless generations, the Arctic fox has ruled these icy plains, perfectly attuned to the rhythms of the cold and the silence of the snow. Its compact body, short ears, and thick, luxurious fur are all adaptations honed by millennia of evolution, allowing it to conserve heat and move effortlessly across the frozen expanse. The Arctic fox's winter coat is a marvel of nature, dense, pure white, and nearly impenetrable to the cold. This camouflage not only shields it from the biting wind, but also from the watchful eyes of predators and prey alike. In the heart of blizzards, The Arctic fox remains undeterred, using its keen senses to navigate and hunt, even when visibility drops to near zero. Its primary prey, the lemming, is a lifeline in this harsh environment. The Arctic fox is a patient and precise hunter, relying on acute hearing to detect the faintest rustle beneath the snow. With a sudden, explosive leap, it dives headfirst into the snow, snatching its quarry in a single, practiced motion, a testament to its mastery of the tundra's challenges. Yet even the most skilled hunter cannot escape the shifting tides of change. The Arctic fox, once unrivaled, now faces a formidable new threat. As the climate warms, the boreal forest steadily advances northward, its trees encroaching on the open tundra and altering the very fabric of the ecosystem. With this transformation comes the arrival of the red fox, a bold, adaptable newcomer venturing further into the Arctic each year. The red fox, once confined to the lush forests of the south, is a generalist in every sense. Its diet is varied, its behavior opportunistic, and its tolerance for different habitats remarkable. Larger and more assertive than its Arctic cousin, the red fox is quick to exploit new opportunities, using its size and strength to dominate encounters. As the tundra warms and food sources diversify, the red fox pushes deeper into territory once thought inhospitable, undeterred by the cold that would have once kept it at bay. By 2025, sightings of red foxes on the open tundra have become increasingly common, signalling a profound shift in the balance of power. The size difference is striking. The red fox outweighs the Arctic fox by as much as 30%, giving it a clear advantage in direct confrontations over territory and resources. When these two predators meet, the outcome is often decided by strength and aggression. The red fox, with its imposing presence, frequently drives the smaller Arctic fox away. Tensions run high as territories overlap, and the competition for food and shelter intensifies. Each encounter is a test of survival, with the stakes higher than ever before. Red foxes are not just competitors, they are also direct threats. They have been observed attacking and even killing Arctic foxes, further tipping the scales in their favour. Perhaps even more consequential is the red fox's tendency to take over Arctic fox dens, seizing these precious shelters for themselves. A den, carved deep into the permafrost, is a sanctuary against the elements, a place to raise young and weather the long Arctic winter. These dens are often used for generations, their locations passed down through the lineage of Arctic fox families. The loss of such vital refuges to the larger, more dominant red fox places immense strain on the Arctic fox population, forcing them into less suitable, more exposed habitats. Competition for food is equally fierce. Both species hunt similar prey, and as resources become scarce, the Arctic fox is often outcompeted by its more aggressive rival. Pushed to the margins, the Arctic fox must eke out a living in barren, rocky areas where food is harder to find and shelter is scarce. This dramatic shift in species distribution is a vivid illustration of how climate change is transforming the very map of the North, redrawing the boundaries of survival. The ongoing struggle between the Arctic fox and the red fox is emblematic of the broader ecological upheaval sweeping across the Yukon tundra. The red fox is not alone in its northward march. Other southern species, predators and prey alike, are following the warming climate, bringing new dynamics and new competition to the tundra. This influx of newcomers is reshaping the food web, introducing unfamiliar predators and competitors to a landscape once dominated by cold-adapted specialists. The established order is being disrupted. Prey species must adapt to new threats, while native predators face rivals they have never encountered before. For the native Arctic species, these changes present unprecedented challenges. Their finely tuned adaptations, once their greatest strengths, may now become vulnerabilities in a world that is warming and growing more unpredictable. The fate of the Arctic fox hangs in the balance. Its survival will depend on its ability to adapt, to find new ways to compete, to seek out new refuges, and to coexist with a more aggressive neighbour in a tundra that is no longer the domain it once was. The story of competition in the changing Yukon tundra is still being written, one paw print at a time. Beyond the great caribou herds, the Yukon is home to a fascinating array of herbivores, each uniquely adapted to survive in its specific niche. The largest of them all is the Alaskan moose, a truly giant subspecies that thrives in the territory's boreal forests and willow thickets. With a population estimated at around 70,000, these magnificent animals actually outnumber the human inhabitants of the Yukon. Their long legs are perfectly suited for wading through deep snow and wetlands, and their massive size makes them a formidable challenge for any predator. As the climate warms, the increased growth of shrubs has allowed moose to expand their range even further north. In the high alpine regions, far above the forested valleys, live two masters of the mountain. The Dall's sheep, with their brilliant white coats and massive curling horns, are a stunning sight against the rocky slopes. They are nimble climbers, relying on their keen eyesight and agility to detect and escape from predators like wolves and golden eagles. The survival of their lambs is intricately linked to the timing of spring. A late spring can mean a lack of nutritious new plant growth when the lambs are born, reducing their chances of survival. These sheep are true ghosts of the mountains, often visible only as white specks on a distant cliff face. Sharing this high-altitude world is the mountain goat. While Dall's sheep prefer the rolling alpine meadows, mountain goats are specialists of the most extreme terrain. Expert climbers that can navigate seemingly impossible sheer rock faces and narrow ledges. Their unique cloven hooves have soft rubbery pads that provide incredible grip on bare rock. Yukon's mountain goat population is smaller and more elusive than that of the sheep, estimated at around 1,500 individuals. They spend the long winters in near hibernation, conserving energy until the short summer, when they are active for only about 90 days to feed and raise their young. These herbivores are not just passive grazers. They are active agents in shaping the landscape. Their browsing patterns influence the growth and distribution of plants, while their presence provides the foundation of the food web for the Yukon's great predators. From the giant moose of the valleys to the ghostly sheep and goats of the highest peaks, each species demonstrates a remarkable resilience and a deep, evolutionary connection to this wild land. Their ability to survive the harsh winters and capitalize on the brief summers is a testament to the power of adaptation in one of the world's last great wildernesses. Caribou, with their specialized hooves, are built for long migrations, traversing vast distances across the tundra in search of food. Their coats change with the seasons, providing insulation against the cold in winter and shedding to keep cool in the summer. Calves are born in the spring, and the protective herds ensure their survival against predators. Muskoxen, with their thick woolly coats, are perfectly adapted to the frigid temperatures, forming tight-knit groups to conserve heat. These ancient animals graze on the tundra, their presence a reminder of the Pleistocene era. The keen senses of these herbivores are their first line of defense, constantly scanning for danger in their vast open habitats. Each species, from the valleys to the peaks, plays a crucial role in the intricate web of life, their interactions with the environment shaping the very essence of the Yukon wilderness. The Yukon's ecosystem is a vast living tapestry, where every river, forest and mountain is woven together by the lives of its wild inhabitants. Here the rivers carve their way through ancient valleys, carrying not just water, but the very lifeblood of the land. Above, the sky is a highway for migratory birds and a hunting ground for raptors, linking distant horizons to the heart of the wilderness. The epic journey of the Chinook salmon is a perfect example of this interconnectedness. These fish are born in the clear, cold streams of the Yukon, and after years at sea they return, guided by ancient instincts, to the very waters of their birth. Their migration, spanning over 3,200 kilometers from the Bering Sea, is a feat of endurance and navigation. As they swim against the current, they become a moving bridge between ocean and inland, carrying with them nutrients that will feed the land far from the coast. When the salmon reach their spawning grounds, their bodies enrich the riverbanks as they decay, providing essential nutrients that fuel the growth of plants and trees. This process sustains the lush vegetation that lines the waterways, creating shelter and food for countless other species. Yet this vital connection is now under threat. The decline in salmon numbers disrupts the flow of nutrients, weakening the foundation of the ecosystem. In recent years, the number of Chinook salmon returning to spawn has plummeted, sometimes reaching as low as 19,000 individuals. This dramatic drop is a warning sign, echoing through the food web. The absence of salmon means less food for the animals that depend on them, and less nourishment for the land itself. The rivers, once teeming with life, grow quieter, and the ripple effects are felt far beyond the water's edge. Bears and eagles, once drawn to the rivers by the promise of a seasonal feast, now search in vain. Their hunger drives them to seek new sources of food, shifting the balance of predation and competition throughout the region. As these predators adapt, their choices affect other species. Moose and caribou, for example, may face increased pressure as bears and eagles turn to alternative prey. The web of life stretches and strains, each thread tugging at another. Without the annual influx of marine nutrients from salmon, the riverbanks become less fertile. Plants struggle to thrive, and the entire riverside community, from insects to mammals, feels the loss. High above, the snowy owl surveys the tundra. This magnificent bird is another vital link in the Yukon's chain of life, its fate tied to the cycles of the land below. The snowy owl's nomadic existence is dictated by the rise and fall of lemming populations. When lemmings are plentiful, the owls gather in great numbers, their presence a sign of abundance in the tundra. In these years, the owls help keep rodent populations in check, maintaining a delicate balance that supports the health of the entire ecosystem. A recent surge in snowy owl numbers in northwestern Canada, as reported in 2024, signals a strong lemming cycle. This boom echoes through the food web, affecting predators and prey alike. The snowy owl's presence is a living indicator of the health of small mammal populations, which in turn depend on the productivity of the land, a productivity once enriched by the salmon's journey from river to sky. Even the smallest creatures, like the red squirrel, are part of this intricate network. Their lives are shaped by the cycles of the forest and the migrations of larger animals. Red squirrels depend on the cones of spruce trees, which flourish thanks to the nutrients brought by migrating caribou, and indirectly by the salmon that once fed the soil. As caribou migrate, their droppings fertilize the forest floor, encouraging the growth of the very trees that sustain the squirrels. This cycle is a testament to the subtle yet profound ways in which the river and the sky are bound together. From the rushing rivers to the open skies, every creature in the Yukon is connected. The salmon's journey feeds the land, the owl's flight signals the health of the tundra, and the caribou's migration shapes the forest. In this wild and beautiful place, the fate of one is the fate of all, a living web stretching from river to sky. As the Yukon faces the unprecedented challenges of a changing climate, a dedicated movement of conservation and adaptation is taking root. This is a collaborative effort, bringing together the wisdom of the land, the resilience of nature, and the innovative spirit of modern conservation. The Yukon government's Our Clean Future initiative is a bold step, aiming to slash greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030 and transition the territory's electricity grid to be 97% renewable. Such efforts are crucial in tackling the root cause of the environmental changes sweeping across the north. A key focus of these efforts is adapting to the inevitable impacts of permafrost thaw. Recognizing the threat to ecosystems, the Canadian government is investing in monitoring and infrastructure adaptation. Sophisticated sensor networks and geotechnical mapping are being deployed to track ground stability and predict areas at high risk of slumping. This scientific approach helps communities plan for the future, reinforcing buildings and roads to withstand the shifting ground. At the same time, conservation groups are working to restore habitats, such as the taiga forest restoration efforts, which work to maintain water quality and forest health along this vital artery. The future of the porcupine caribou herd and their critical calving grounds remains a central conservation concern. For decades, efforts have been made to protect the coastal plain from industrial development, arguing that the area is sacred and essential to the survival of the caribou and the ecosystem. This tireless advocacy, combined with ongoing scientific research, has so far succeeded in preventing oil and gas exploration in this sensitive region. The continued protection of this nursery is paramount for the long-term health of the herd and the many species that depend on it. What does the future hold for the wild lands and wildlife of the Yukon? The challenges are immense, and the landscape is undeniably changing. Yet there is also a powerful sense of hope, rooted in the deep connection between the people and this land. The combination of ancient indigenous knowledge and modern scientific research offers a powerful toolkit for navigating the uncertain times ahead. The future of the Yukon will depend on this spirit of collaboration, on wise stewardship, and on a global commitment to addressing climate change. The fight to preserve this vast, wild and precious part of our planet continues. Gap 2S. Amidst the rolling tundra, dense boreal forests and windswept mountain slopes, the Yukon's flora quietly shapes the landscape and supports the web of life. These plants are more than just a backdrop. They are silent survivors, uniquely adapted to endure extremes of cold, wind, and fleeting sunlight. Gap 2S. In the lowland valleys, carpets of moss and lichen cling to the permafrost, forming a living blanket that insulates the soil below. The reindeer lichen, with its pale, branching form, is a vital food source for caribou during the long winter months. Its slow, patient growth, sometimes just a few millimeters each year, mirrors the pace of life in the Arctic. Gap 2S, dwarf birch and willow, twist and hug the ground, their branches sculpted by relentless wind and snow. These shrubs provide shelter for nesting birds and browsing for moose and snowshoe hares. Their shallow roots allow them to take advantage of the thin, nutrient-poor soils, while their flexible stems bend without breaking under the weight of snow. Gap 2S. In the brief, intense summers, the Yukon erupts in a riot of colour. Arctic poppies, with their vibrant yellow blooms, turn to follow the midnight sun, maximising every precious hour of warmth. Fireweed, the official flower of the Yukon, paints vast meadows in brilliant fuchsia and signals the renewal of the land after fire or disturbance. Gap 2S. Higher up on windswept alpine ridges, tiny mountain avens and purple saxifrage cling to life between the rocks. These hardy plants have adapted to survive on little more than grit and determination, their roots anchoring them against the constant battering of wind and frost. Gap 2S. In the shadowy understory of the boreal forest, black spruce and tamarack dominate, their needles conserving moisture and resisting the cold. The forest floor is a patchwork of cloudberry and cranberry, offering bursts of sweetness to any creature patient enough to find them. Gap 2S. Each plant in the Yukon is a story of adaptation and resilience, a testament to the power of life in the face of adversity. Together they form the foundation of the ecosystem, feeding, sheltering and sustaining the region's iconic wildlife. Gap 2S. As climate change brings new challenges and opportunities to the north, the fate of these silent survivors hangs in the balance. Their persistence is a reminder. In the Yukon, even the smallest life can leave a lasting mark on the wild and ancient land. Gap 2S. Hidden beneath the shimmering surfaces of the Yukon's countless rivers, lakes and wetlands lies a world just as vibrant and vital as the land above. These aquatic ecosystems are the arteries of the north, weaving through valleys and forests, shaping the land and nurturing life in ways both seen and unseen. Gap 2S. The mighty Yukon River, one of North America's longest, carves its way through the wilderness for over 3,000 kilometers. Its waters, fed by glacial melt and spring rains, are home to an astonishing array of aquatic life. Here, ancient sturgeon glide along the riverbed, their armoured bodies unchanged for millennia, while schools of grayling and whitefish dart through the clear currents. Gap 2S. In spring and summer, the river becomes a highway for one of the world's greatest migrations, the Chinook salmon run. Born in the gravel beds of remote tributaries, young salmon journey to the Bering Sea, only to return years later, navigating thousands of kilometres upstream. Their return nourishes not only the river, but the entire ecosystem, as their bodies feed bears, eagles, and even the forests themselves. Gap 2S. Along the riverbanks, beaver lodges rise from still backwaters. These tireless engineers create wetlands that pulse with life. Dragonflies skim the water's surface, frogs chorus from the reeds, and muskrats weave through tangles of submerged roots. In these quiet shallows, aquatic plants like pondweed and water milfoil provide shelter and food for a myriad of tiny invertebrates, forming the base of a complex food web. Gap 2S. The Yukon's lakes, from vast kluane to hidden alpine tarns, are shaped by the rhythms of freeze and thaw. During the long winter, thick ice seals the water below, creating a world of muted light and slow movement. Fish slow their metabolism, surviving off stored energy until the sun returns. When the ice finally breaks, a burst of life follows. Phytoplankton bloom in the warming waters, feeding zooplankton, which in turn nourish young fish and waterfowl. Gap 2S. Wetlands, the nurseries of the north, sprawl across the lowlands. Here, sedges and grasses filter the water, trapping silt and absorbing nutrients. These marshes are sanctuaries for nesting ducks, loons and swans, as well as for insects and amphibians that thrive in the shallow, sunlit pools. Gap 2S. Even in the harshest seasons, life finds a way. Under winter's ice, tiny aquatic insects continue their slow dance, and hardy fish persist in the darkness, waiting for the return of the light. Gap 2S. Yukon's aquatic ecosystems are a delicate balance, shaped by ancient glaciers, sustained by seasonal cycles, and linked to the land and sky. They are a hidden world, teeming with life, resilience, and quiet beauty, reminding us that even beneath the surface, the wild heart of the north beats strong. Gap 2S. Each year, as the grip of winter loosens and the land begins to thaw, the Yukon witnesses one of nature's most spectacular phenomena, the arrival of migratory birds. Across endless skies, flocks of wings beat in unison, tracing ancient aerial highways that span continents and oceans. Gap 2S. The Yukon's wetlands, forests and tundra transform into a vital sanctuary. Here, millions of birds, ranging from tiny songbirds to majestic waterfowl, pause to rest, feed and raise their young before continuing their epic journeys. The region's vast, unspoiled landscapes offer a brief but abundant window of opportunity, where the sun never truly sets and food is plentiful. Gap 2S. Among the first arrivals are the snow geese. Their V-shaped formations are a familiar sight, their calls echoing across the land as they descend onto flooded fields and riverbanks. These resilient travellers journey thousands of kilometres from wintering grounds on the Gulf Coast and California, drawn north by the promise of safety and sustenance. Gap 2S. Following close behind are the elegant tundra swans, their long necks curving gracefully as they glide over lakes still rimmed with ice. Alongside them, flocks of sandhill cranes fill the air with their trumpet-like calls, a sound that has reverberated across these valleys for millions of years. These ancient birds return to nest in the secluded wetlands, where their red-capped heads can be glimpsed among the sedges. Gap 2S. The forests and shrublands burst with the songs of warblers, thrushes and sparrows. Tiny, jewel-bright yellow warblers flit among budding willows, building intricate nests hidden from view. The Swainson's thrush, with its ethereal spiralling song, marks the dawn and dusk, while the white-crowned sparrow's clear whistle becomes the soundtrack of summer. Gap 2S. High above the river valleys, the Arctic tern claims the title of the world's longest migrator. These delicate birds undertake an astonishing journey, travelling from the Antarctic all the way to the Yukon and back again each year, a round trip of over 35,000 kilometres. Their arrival signals the true return of the northern summer. Gap 2S. Wetlands teem with the activity of ducks, loons and shorebirds. Northern pintails and mallards dabble in shallow pools, while the haunting calls of common loons echo across still waters. Along muddy shorelines, lesser yellowlegs and semi-palmated sandpipers probe for insects, refuelling before continuing to the Arctic tundra. Gap 2S. For a brief season, the Yukon becomes a crossroads of the avian world, a place where life pulses with urgency and purpose. Nests are built, chicks are hatched and fed, and the air thrums with wings and song. By late summer, as days shorten and the first frosts return, these same birds gather once more, preparing for the long journey south. Gap 2S. The migratory birds of the Yukon are more than seasonal visitors. They are living threads that connect continents, oceans and ecosystems, silent ambassadors of the wild whose journeys remind us of the enduring rhythms and fragile wonders of the north. Gap 2S. Beneath the waving grasses, under the mossy carpets and within the tangled roots of the Yukon wilderness, another world thrives, a world ruled by insects. Often overlooked, these tiny creatures are, in many ways, the silent architects of the north, shaping ecosystems in ways both subtle and profound. Gap 2S. As soon as the snow retreats and temperatures rise, a surge of insect life emerges. Swarms of mosquitoes and black flies rise in shimmering clouds, their arrival as reliable as the return of spring itself. For many, these biting insects are a nuisance, but in the grand design of the Yukon, they are a vital source of nourishment. Countless birds, bats, and even fish rely on these abundant swarms to fuel their own survival and migrations. Mosquitoes alone provide the protein-rich meals that sustain nesting birds and help fledglings grow strong enough for their first flights. Gap 2S. Among the grasses, beetles scurry on urgent errands. Ground beetles patrol the forest floor, preying on caterpillars and other insects, keeping populations in balance. Dazzling tiger beetles flash metallic green and blue as they hunt in open patches, their speed and agility unmatched in the miniature world. Gap 2S. Hidden in decaying wood, the larvae of longhorn beetles and bark beetles quietly break down fallen trees, recycling nutrients back into the soil. This slow, unseen work is the foundation of the Yukon's rich plant life, ensuring that each season's fallen giants nourish the next generation of spruce and willow. Gap 2. S. On sunny afternoons, butterflies and moths flutter through meadows and along riverbanks. The Arctic fritillary, with its orange and brown patterned wings, sips nectar from wildflowers, while the ghostly white of the clouded sulphur drifts above the tundra. These pollinators are essential to the brief, explosive bloom of summer, transferring pollen from flower to flower and guaranteeing fruits and seeds for the coming year. Gap 2S. Deep in the wetlands, dragonflies zip and hover, their iridescent bodies glinting in the light. These aerial hunters feast on mosquitoes and midges, their larvae thriving in the clear, cold waters of ponds and oxbows. As both predator and prey, dragonflies are a key link in the food web, supporting birds, fish and amphibians alike. Gap 2S. Even in the coldest months, some insects endure. The snow flea, a tiny springtail, leaps across the snow surface, feeding on algae and detritus. Others, like the hardy woolly bear caterpillar, survive by entering a state of suspended animation, their bodies protected from the bitter cold by natural antifreeze. Gap 2S. Insects are the recyclers, the pollinators, the prey, and the predators, the heartbeat of the Yukon's wild. Every flutter of wings, every glint of carapace is part of an ancient cycle that sustains life in the north. Without these hidden engineers, the wilderness would fall silent, its intricate web unravelling thread by thread. Gap 2S. In the Yukon, the smallest creatures often play the largest roles, reminding us that even the quietest lives can shape the fate of an entire land. Gap 2S. In the Yukon, survival is a test of endurance, ingenuity, and timing. As autumn wanes and the first icy winds sweep across the land, wildlife prepares for the arrival of a season that can last for more than half the year. Temperatures plunge, snow buries the landscape, and food grows scarce. Yet, life here has evolved remarkable ways to withstand the relentless cold. Gap 2S. For many mammals, adaptation begins with a change in their very coats. The Arctic fox, for example, transforms from brown and grey in summer to a pristine white in winter, its fur growing twice as thick to trap precious heat. Beneath the snow, voles and lemmings carve out subnivean tunnels, where the insulating blanket of snow keeps temperatures far warmer than the frigid air above. Gap 2S. Larger animals employ different tactics. The mighty wood bison grows a dense underlayer of woolly fur, while its outer guard hairs shed snow and repel ice. Moose, with their imposing bulk, rely on a combination of fat reserves and a thick hide to endure temperatures that would freeze lesser creatures. They conserve energy by moving slowly and browsing only the most nutrient-rich twigs and bark. Gap 2S. For some, survival means slowing down the rhythm of life itself. The Arctic ground squirrel enters a deep hibernation, its body temperature dropping below freezing in one of nature's most extreme feats of endurance. Heartbeats slow to just a few per minute, and breathing nearly stops, all to conserve the precious energy stored in body fat. Gap 2S. Birds face a different challenge. Many, like the raven, remain year-round, fluffing their feathers to create insulating air pockets and seeking shelter in dense spruce forests. Chickadees, tiny yet resilient, enter nightly torpor, a state where body temperature drops and metabolism slows, allowing them to survive the coldest nights. Gap 2S. Even beneath the ice, life persists. Fish like the Arctic grayling slow their metabolism dramatically, gliding through sluggish currents under thick ice. Amphibians, such as the wood frog, employ a remarkable trick. They allow their bodies to freeze solid, protected by natural antifreeze compounds that prevent their cells from bursting. As spring returns, these frozen survivors thaw and awaken, continuing the cycle anew. Gap 2S. Insects too have their secrets. Many produce glycerol and other cryoprotectants, acting as a biological antifreeze that lets them survive in a frozen state. Others, like the woolly bear caterpillar, endure for years by freezing and thawing with each passing season. Gap 2S. Across tundra, forest and river, the Yukon's wildlife demonstrates a resilience honed by millennia. Each adaptation, whether a coat of fur, a store of fat or a heartbeat slowed to near silence, is a testament to the artistry of evolution. Here, where winter's grip is absolute, survival depends not on strength alone, but on the subtle mastery of the cold. Gap 2S. In the great frozen wilds of the Yukon, every creature is a master of adaptation, each one a living answer to winter's unyielding challenge. Gap 2S. Amidst the dramatic peaks and endless tundra of the Yukon, plant life follows a rhythm as old as the land itself. Here the seasons dictate every moment, from the first tentative buds of spring to the final falling leaves before winter's return. The pulse of life above the Arctic Circle may seem subdued, but beneath the surface, a complex and vibrant cycle is always in motion. Gap 2S. As the snow retreats and sunlight floods the landscape, the Yukon's brief but intense growing season begins. Dormant seeds and roots, buried deep beneath the frozen earth, sense the subtle warming of the soil. Triggered by lengthening days, willows and dwarf birches awaken first, their buds swelling with the promise of new leaves. Soon, carpets of wildflowers, Arctic lupine, fireweed and mountain avens burst into bloom, transforming the tundra into a tapestry of colour. Gap 2S. This is a race against time. With only a few short months to gather energy, plants must work quickly. Leaves unfurl to soak in the endless daylight, photosynthesizing at a frantic pace. Some, like the alpine bearberry, keep their leaves year-round, ready to capture every photon the moment the snow melts. Others, such as the Labrador tea, are coated in tiny hairs, an adaptation that conserves moisture and shields against cold winds. Gap 2S. As summer peaks, the Yukon's forests and meadows teem with life. Lichens and mosses thrive in the damp understory, their slow growth supporting entire food webs. Berry bushes, crowberry, cloudberry and blueberry, ripen, offering vital nourishment to birds and mammals preparing for the lean months ahead. Even the smallest plants, like saxifrages and Arctic poppies, flower and set seed with astonishing speed. Gap 2S. By late summer, the days begin to shorten. The first hints of autumn ignite the landscape in hues of gold, crimson and amber. Deciduous trees and shrubs draw nutrients back into their roots, shedding leaves to conserve precious resources. Ground cover plants form protective mats, insulating themselves against the coming freeze. Gap 2S. As winter descends, plant life retreats once more into dormancy. Above ground the land appears lifeless, but beneath the snow roots and seeds endure, insulated from the worst of the cold. Some, encased in ice, wait patiently for the return of the sun, relying on stored energy from the brief summer. Lichens continue their slow, silent growth, weathering the darkness with remarkable resilience. Gap 2S. In the Yukon, the cycle of plant life is a story of patience, adaptation and renewal. Each season brings its own challenges and rewards, shaping a flora uniquely suited to one of Earth's harshest environments. Through bitter cold and fleeting warmth, Yukon's plants persist, quiet witnesses to the eternal dance of the northern seasons. Gap 2S. Long before the first seed broke through the tundra soil, the Yukon was shaped by forces far older than life itself. The story of this land stretches back hundreds of millions of years, written in stone, ice, and the silent contours of its valleys and peaks. Gap 2S. The foundation of the Yukon was forged in the tumult of colliding tectonic plates. Ancient mountain ranges rose and crumbled, their roots still visible as rugged ridges and towering peaks. Layers of sediment tell tales of vanished seas, where marine creatures once drifted in warm, shallow waters. Fossilized corals and shells, now embedded in the limestone of high cliffs, are silent witnesses to an era when the Yukon lay beneath ancient oceans. Gap 2S over eons, volcanic eruptions scattered ash and molten rock across the landscape. These fiery events left behind basalt flows and mineral-rich soils, setting the stage for the diverse ecosystems that would one day emerge. Deep within the earth, pressure and heat transformed ordinary rock into gleaming veins of quartz and gold, treasures hidden for millennia beneath the surface. Gap 2S. The last ice age left an indelible mark on the Yukon. Vast glaciers crept across the land, grinding mountains into valleys and sculpting the terrain into its present form. As the ice retreated, it carved out deep lakes, winding rivers, and the broad open plains that now stretch beneath the northern sky. In the wake of the glaciers, tundra and boreal forests slowly reclaimed the barren ground. Gap 2S. Today, the Yukon's ancient landscapes are a living museum of Earth's dramatic history. Jagged peaks, like the St. Elias Mountains, bear the scars of relentless erosion. The serpentine curves of river valleys trace the paths of vanished glaciers. Permafrost, locked in the soil for tens of thousands of years, preserves the remains of long-extinct creatures. Mammoths, steppe bison, and the giant beaver. Gap 2S. Even now, the land continues to shift. Earthquakes rumble quietly beneath the surface, and the slow march of erosion shapes new features from the old. In every rock face and river bend, the Yukon's geological past endures, an ancient foundation for the life that flourishes above. Gap 2S. The Yukon story is one of transformation on a grand scale. Its ancient landscapes are reminders of the power and patience of natural forces, shaping a world where life endures against all odds, and the echoes of the past remain etched in stone. Gap 2S. Beneath the Yukon's surface, a world of ice lies hidden, Permafrost, the silent architect of the northern wilds. This frozen ground, locked in place for thousands of years, is more than just a geological curiosity. It is the unseen backbone of the Yukon's ecosystems, shaping every aspect of life above. Gap 2S. Permafrost acts as a barrier, trapping water near the surface during the brief summer thaw. Pools and wetlands form atop this icy layer, creating critical habitats for aquatic plants, insects and migratory birds. The annual melt feeds rivers and sustains the marshes where moose graze and waterfowl nest. Gap 2S. The roots of Yukon's forests and tundra plants must adapt to this shallow, seasonally thawed layer known as the active layer. Some trees, like the black spruce, grow slowly and remain stunted, their roots spreading wide rather than deep. Mosses and lichens thrive in the damp, cool conditions, carpeting the ground and insulating the permafrost below. Gap 2S. Permafrost also shapes the land itself. When ice within the soil melts and refreezes, it pushes up hummocks and forms patterned ground, circles, polygons and ridges that stretch across the tundra like cryptic messages from the earth. These microhabitats shelter insects and small mammals, providing niches in an otherwise harsh landscape. Gap 2S. But permafrost is more than a frozen foundation. It is a vast repository of ancient carbon. Locked within its depths are the remains of prehistoric plants and animals, preserved for millennia by the relentless cold. As permafrost thaws, this carbon is released, subtly influencing the cycles of life and the balance of gases in the atmosphere. Gap 2S. The presence of permafrost also dictates the movement of larger animals. Caribou herds, wolves and foxes traverse the land, navigating boggy lowlands and firm uplands shaped by the freeze-thaw cycle. Burrowing animals like ground squirrels and lemmings time their activities to the rhythm of the thaw, digging into the soft earth above the permafrost in search of food and shelter. Gap 2S. Yet this delicate balance is easily disturbed. As the climate warms, permafrost thaws earlier and deeper each year. Wetlands drain away, forests tilt and fall as the ground shifts, and new patterns of vegetation emerge. The very foundation of the Yukon's ecosystems is in flux, setting off a cascade of changes that ripple through every layer of life. Gap 2S. In the Yukon, permafrost is both a guardian and a gatekeeper, a frozen legacy that quietly sustains, shapes and challenges the wild heart of the North. Across the vast expanse of the Yukon, an elemental force shapes the land in ways both dramatic and subtle: fire. Far from being merely a destructive agent, fire is a natural architect, transforming forests and tundra in cycles that have unfolded for millennia. Gap 2S. During the dry, lightning-prone summers, storms sweep across the Yukon. Lightning forks down, igniting the resin-rich needles of black spruce stands. Flames race across the forest floor, consuming leaf litter and fallen branches. From above, plumes of smoke spiral skyward, signaling renewal as much as loss. Gap 2S. In the aftermath, the land is transformed. The heat opens cones of the lodgepole pine, releasing seeds onto the nutrient-rich ash. Charred ground, once barren, becomes a cradle for new plant life. Fireweed is often first to appear, its vibrant magenta blooms carpeting the blackened earth, a symbol of resilience and rebirth. Gap 2S. For the animals of the Yukon, fire is both a challenge and an opportunity. Moose, attracted by the tender shoots of willow and aspen that sprout after a burn, move into the regenerating clearings. Snowshoe hares, thriving in the dense regrowth, become more abundant, followed closely by their lynx predators. Gap 2S. Even the smallest creatures adapt. Beetle larvae burrow into freshly fallen logs, while woodpeckers follow, feasting on the bounty. Raptors circle above, drawn by the flurry of activity in the open sunlit patches left by fire. Gap 2S. Fire also plays a crucial role in maintaining the balance between forest and tundra. Without periodic burns, spruce and aspen would gradually encroach on open meadows, reducing the diversity of habitats. By resetting the landscape, fire preserves the mosaic of ecosystems that define the Yukon. Gap 2S. The cycle of fire is ancient. Charcoal layers deep in the soil tell a story of repeated burns, each one shaping the succession of plant and animal life. In this way, fire is a silent partner to the frost. Where the freeze preserves, fire renews. Gap 2S. As the climate shifts, fire regimes are changing. Longer, hotter summers mean more frequent and intense wildfires. The Yukon's inhabitants, rooted and roaming, must adapt to a world where flames have an ever larger role in sculpting the wilderness. Gap 2S. In the wild heart of the Yukon, fire is not an enemy but a vital force. It clears, it nourishes and it shapes, ensuring that the dance of life continues vibrant and renewed on this northern frontier. As the Yukon's wilderness stands at the threshold of tomorrow, its wildlife faces a landscape of shifting challenges and unexpected opportunities. The ancient rhythms of migration, predation and renewal are now accompanied by new pressures, some slow and subtle, others sudden and profound. In the years ahead, rising temperatures promise longer summers and shorter, milder winters. For some, like the adaptable red fox, this opens new territories once dominated by the Arctic fox. Yet this expansion brings competition, as newly overlapping ranges ignite silent battles for food and shelter. The rivers, swollen with earlier snowmelt, carry both promise and peril. Salmon, whose epic journeys upstream define the Yukon's aquatic life, must now navigate warmer, faster waters. Some will find their way blocked by shifting channels or altered currents, while others may thrive in the new conditions, their numbers waxing and waning with the pulse of the river. Caribou herds, whose migrations are etched into the land itself, encounter unpredictable weather and changing plant growth. Calving grounds, once reliable, may now be blanketed in snow or devoid of nourishing shoots. Yet with each challenge the herds adapt, altering routes, shifting timing and seeking out new sanctuaries within the vast Yukon expanse. Predators, too, respond to the new order. Wolves and lynx follow the movements of their prey, adjusting territories and hunting strategies as populations rise and fall. Some species, like the grizzly bear, may roam further in search of berries and roots, while others, less adaptable, face dwindling numbers. Beneath the canopy, smaller creatures seize their chance. Insects, thriving in warmer climates, expand their ranges, some becoming vital pollinators, others new competitors or threats. Birds, ever the wanderers, adjust migratory routes, following the shifting availability of food and safe nesting grounds. Amid these challenges, opportunity glimmers. New plant species take root in freshly thawed soils, offering sustenance to herbivores and reshaping the food web. Wetlands, expanding with the melting permafrost, become havens for amphibians and waterfowl, their calls echoing across the dawn-lit marshes. The future of Yukon's wildlife is a tapestry of uncertainty, woven with threads of resilience, adaptation and hope. In this ever-evolving wilderness, survival belongs not to the strongest, but to the most adaptable. For every challenge, nature offers a chance for renewal, a reminder that even on the edge, life in the Yukon endures, transformed but unbroken.